Good morning, friends. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys some knife skills so that we're being safe in the kitchen when we're cutting our food. In my colander here, I have some celery sticks and a tomato. And these are the vegetables we're going to use in our recipe today, which is the tuna melt. I'm going to start with the tomato. Now you might notice a tomato is round and can glide all over this cutting board, right? And also because these are freshly washed, they're wet, so they're a little bit slippery. So I'm going to want to find a flat surface to cut my food on. I'm using this knife here. You guys may be receiving a knife more like this. This knife is for beginners, so if you're just starting out learning to cook and to use knives, this knife is a little bit safer because it's not as sharp on the edge here, all right? So, starting with finding a flat surface. I'm taking my knife and making sure my fingers are way down here, they're nowhere close to the blade, and with my left hand, I'm forming something called the claw. So if you're watching now, you can make a claw to practice here, making sure your thumb is tucked right under. And with this claw, I'm going to gently grip the tomato and slice through. So, why do we use a claw? If you're thinking that it's to be safer while we cut, you are correct. So when we curve our fingers like this on the food, that way if we're chopping across, whoops, we'll hit our knuckles and we won't by mistake cut ourselves, okay? So now that we found a flat surface, we can flip that over. This way it's not gonna be moving around our cutting board. This recipe actually calls for tomato slices, okay? So a slice is going to be thin and long. So with my claw, I'm going to gently slice down on the tomato and make some thin slices so that we can put them on top of the tuna melt, just like this. It's important to clear your cutting board so that you aren't trying to cut in a really small corner. That's gonna make it more difficult for you. All right, so next I have my piece of celery. Now, are we going to use celery slices in our tuna melt? I don't think so. We don't want a long stick of celery on a tiny little tuna melt, right? We're gonna want to dice it or mince it. And dice and mince are cooking terms. These are ways we can cut our food. So, which one is smaller? What do you think, a dice or a mince? If you said mince, you are correct. Mince is when we cut things into really little tiny bits, okay? Something like garlic. We aren't going to want a big chunk of garlic in our food, right? So we mince it so that it's nice and small. When we dice things, they're also small, but they're in larger bites, so something that you might have on a salad, for example. Okay, so you can kind of choose. If you want bigger pieces of celery in your tuna melt, you could dice it. I'm going to mince it because I like small pieces. Remember to use your claw. I'm going to start by cutting long slices like this. And I'll show you why in a moment that is helpful once I keep chopping this into small pieces. Now I have these long thin slices and I can stack them right up and take a look at this. Now that they are stacked together and I slice through them, they're coming out in these small little bits. It's kind of between a mince and a dice, I would say, this size. But it's bite size, right? We're mixing this into tuna salad, so we don't want to have a huge chunk, but we also don't really need to spend the time to make it very, very small. So I'm gonna bring this a little bit closer so that you can see. And there we have our chopped up celery. All right, so remember, when you're cutting at home, first step, of course, is always wash your fruits and vegetables and your hands. Then when you start to cut, find a flat surface of the food. Second, use that claw, right, and tuck that thumb. And then, depending on your slice, you might be chopping things a little bit differently, right? You might be doing long, thin slices like this. You might be doing tiny pieces, a dice, or maybe even a mince, something smaller. Maybe in later weeks we'll do a mince. Or slices like this, right? Okay, so you'll get to try this at home, and definitely comment below and record a video to tell me how it went.